The town of Aspen Falls lay buried beneath a thick blanket of snow. Streetlights flickered through the falling flakes, casting long shadows that danced across the icy streets. Officer Lisa tightened her coat around her, shivering slightly despite the layers. Her breath came in soft, frosty clouds, dissipating quickly into the cold night air. It was late for a routine patrol, but something about tonight felt different. The quiet wasn't peaceful, it was loaded, heavy with tension. Lisa had been a police officer for 8 years, and she had learned to trust her instincts. Tonight, every nerve in her body screamed that something was off. Beside her, Max, her German Shepherd K9 partner, padded silently through the snow, paws sinking slightly with each step. He was large, muscular, and imposing, yet his movements were precise and controlled. His fur was dusted with snow, glinting faintly under the streetlights, and his ears twitched constantly, catching the faintest of sounds. Lisa had trained Max herself since he was a pup, and their bond was more than professional, it was familial. Max could read her moods, her tension, and her unspoken thoughts, responding instantly. When she whispered, "Stay sharp, buddy," Max's low, steady growl was confirmation that he understood. The town had been unusually quiet for the past week. Reports of minor thefts had come in, but nothing violent, or at least nothing caught on camera. Yet the sheriff's office had seen a subtle uptick in nervous calls. Someone prowling in back alleys, suspicious figures lingering near homes, and cars that didn't belong in quiet neighborhoods. Tonight, Lisa had the eerie feeling that the calm before a storm had arrived, and she didn't want to be caught unprepared. She walked past shuttered storefronts, boots crunching on ice beneath the fresh snow. Each breath came out in white clouds that hung briefly in the cold, lit by flickering neon signs. The windows of the town's diners and cafes were dark, with occasional fogged patterns hinting at a world of warmth and life just beyond reach. Lisa's eyes scanned every shadow, every movement. She had learned the hard way that criminals often use the cover of night, and in winter, the snow helped hide every trace. Footprints could be erased by a single gust of wind. Max's nose twitched and he paused abruptly, ears perked toward a distant sound. Lisa immediately halted, instincts kicking into overdrive. "What is it, Max?" she whispered, squinting through the snow. Max took a few tentative steps forward, then stopped again, his body tense. Lisa bent slightly to meet his gaze. He didn't move until she whispered softly, "Lead the way." Without hesitation, Max advanced, nose low to the ground, tail stiff but controlled. Lisa followed, trusting his instincts as much as her own. The wind howled through the narrow streets, carrying with it the scent of smoke from distant chimneys and the faint, metallic tang of something else, something unfamiliar. Lisa's pulse quickened. She had been through countless patrols in snowstorms, but the way this one felt, alive, pressing against her senses, was different. Her boots slipped on icy patches, snow spraying up around her as she moved. Max was unbothered, each step precise, almost effortless. She couldn't help but admire his focus. Every officer wanted a reliable partner, but Max was more than that. He was her anchor in chaos, a living, breathing shield in the night. As they approached the intersection near Main and Fifth, a faint light flickered in the distance. Lisa squinted through the snow, her gloved hand brushing over her radio. She tried to call in, but the static from the cold interfered with transmission. "Backup might be delayed," she muttered to herself, scanning the streets. Max's ears twitched and he growled softly, low in his throat. It wasn't a sound of aggression, at least not yet, but a warning. Lisa's heartbeat quickened. Her instincts screamed that trouble was near, and tonight it wouldn't announce itself politely. A sudden movement caught her eye, a shadow slipping between 2 parked cars. Lisa froze, eyes narrowing. "Show yourself," she shouted, her voice cutting through the howling wind. The snow swirled around her, making everything seem surreal, almost dreamlike. The shadow paused, then darted into the alley beside the jewelry store. Lisa didn't hesitate. "Max, go!" She sprinted, muscles burning against the icy resistance, snow crunching and spraying around them. Max bounded ahead with speed and precision, disappearing into the alley as if he had become one with the night. The alley was narrow and dark, walls lined with snow-covered trash bins. Lisa's eyes flicked from corner to corner, Something about this place screamed danger. Max's nose was low to the ground and his tail flicked slightly with each step. Lisa followed closely, careful not to make a sound, yet the cold air burned her lungs with every breath. She knew that in a moment every decision would matter. A misstep, a hesitation, and the outcome could be disastrous. She reached the end of the alley and saw the faint outline of a door slightly ajar. The jewelry store's back entrance. Lisa signaled to Max and he pressed forward, nose twitching, scanning for movement. Snowflakes clung to the edges of the door, yet something had passed recently. Fresh footprints pressed into the snow leading inside. Lisa's pulse quickened. The adrenaline hit her like ice water in her veins. "Max, stay sharp," she whispered. His response was immediate. A low, measured growl that vibrated in her chest, echoing the tension rising within her. Inside, the store was dark, lights broken, alarms silent but still dangling from the ceiling. Lisa moved carefully, hand on her holster, every nerve alert. Max's paws made barely a sound on the cold floor, his nose flicking in rapid assessment. The air smelled faintly of metal and melted snow, evidence of forced entry. Lisa's eyes scanned the room, spotting the safe that had been broken into. The drawers were empty, a clear sign the intruder had been thorough. Yet something about the scene felt off. Not the usual break-in, but calculated, deliberate. A sudden noise, a muffled shuffle made Lisa freeze. Max's ears pricked, body tense. She turned slowly, gun raised, eyes straining to penetrate the dim shadows. The snowstorm outside raged, muffling sounds but amplifying every movement in her immediate space. Then Max barked sharply, a single commanding note that cut through the tension like a blade. Lisa's head snapped in the direction he indicated, and she caught a fleeting glimpse of a figure slipping toward the back exit. She bolted after him, boots crunching, heart hammering. Tonight the snow wasn't just cold, it was a battlefield. Lisa pushed through the snow-covered street, Max leading with uncanny precision. Each step forward was a test of endurance, the cold biting into her skin, snow clinging to her uniform. Her breath came in sharp, frozen bursts. She knew the town's lives depended on her vigilance tonight. Something in the air told her this pursuit wasn't just about stolen goods. It was about survival, about preventing tragedy before it struck. She tightened her grip on her radio, ready to call for backup, though she feared it might not arrive in time. Max's gaze never wavered. Together they were unstoppable, yet the storm around them was relentless, hiding dangers at every turn. The shrill wail of the jewelry store alarm pierced the night like a sudden, jagged crack. Lisa's heart jumped into her throat and Max immediately stiffened, ears pricked toward the source. The sound was harsh, metallic, echoing against the snow-covered streets, blending strangely with the whistling winter wind. Lisa didn't hesitate. She pressed forward, her boots sinking into snow that reached halfway up her calves, leaving thick tracks that vanished behind her almost as soon as she took them. Max surged ahead, agile and silent despite the weight of the snow on his fur. He moved with single-minded determination, a perfect partner in the chaos of the frozen night. Lisa's pulse pounded in her ears, each beat matching the rhythmic growl of Max as he led the way toward Main and 5th Street. Her radio crackled with static, distant voices trying to communicate through the storm, but she couldn't wait. Seconds counted. Whoever was inside the store now had no regard for time or law, only opportunity. She had trained for situations like this countless times in drills, but there was a difference between theory and reality. Tonight, theory meant nothing. Every sense was heightened. The chill biting her cheeks, the uneven crunch of snow beneath her boots, the faint scent of something metallic and sharp that clung to the air. As they approached the corner, Lisa could see the jewelry store faintly through the storm, the blinking red light of its alarm painting the snow around it with a chaotic glow. The glass doors were intact, but a faint gap at the back alley indicated a potential escape route. Lisa crouched slightly, hand brushing Max's fur for reassurance. "Stay with me, Max," she whispered. The dog responded with a low growl, a sound that carried confidence, warning, and readiness all at once. Together, they moved like shadows, snowflakes dancing around them, leaving a trail of footprints that the wind already began to erase. Suddenly, a movement caught Lisa's peripheral vision, a fleeting shadow slipping behind a dumpster at the edge of the alley. She froze. "Show yourself," she shouted, voice cutting through the roaring wind. The figure paused, a glimpse of black clothing against the snow, and then darted toward the narrow alley that ran behind the store. Max was instantly alert, nose twitching as he picked up a faint trail in the snow. Lisa sprinted, her heart hammering in her chest, boots slipping on icy patches. Adrenaline coursed through her veins, sharpening her reflexes. Tonight, every step, every decision, could be the difference between life and death. The alley was tight, snow piled high against the brick walls. Lisa could barely see more than a few feet ahead. Max darted ahead, nose low to the ground, weaving carefully through the obstacles. Trash bins, discarded cardboard, and broken crates littered the path, each creating a potential hazard. Lisa followed closely, her gloved hands brushing against walls to maintain balance, gun ready in a defensive grip. She could hear Max's nails scraping lightly against the pavement, the sound amplified by the quiet intensity of the snowstorm. Then a faint scuffling sound echoed ahead. Max stopped abruptly, ears swiveling. Lisa's chest tightened. Instinct screamed that they were closing in on the intruder. She slowed, listening, waiting, heart pounding in a rhythm that seemed louder than the storm itself. A gust of wind carried a metallic scent, perhaps blood, perhaps the intruder's tools. Lisa's grip on her radio tightened. She wanted backup, but she knew she was already too far in for hesitation. Max's growl deepened, low and rumbling, vibrating through the cold air. She knew it meant danger was near. Without warning, a shadow surged from behind a snow-dusted dumpster. Lisa reacted instantly, stepping into a defensive stance, weapon raised, while Max lunged with precision. The figure, a man dressed in dark layers, face obscured by a hood, stumbled but didn't fall, holding a crowbar in one hand. The wind whipped around him, throwing snow into his eyes, yet he moved with desperate determination. Lisa's voice cut through the storm, commanding and unwavering. "Stop, police! Drop the weapon." The figure faltered for a moment, eyes darting between the officer and the dog, and then bolted further down the alley. Max barked sharply, a single commanding note that echoed against the brick walls, warning the intruder that escape would not be easy. Lisa sprinted, heart pounding, boots crunching against ice-covered debris. Snow sprayed around her with every step, the storm threatening to swallow them whole. She felt a strange mixture of fear and exhilaration. This was the life she had chosen, and Max was the reason she could face it head-on. The dog moved fluidly, weaving around obstacles, following a scent that Lisa could only faintly detect in the chaotic storm. The alley opened into a small, secluded courtyard behind the store. Broken crates, snow-covered benches, and discarded packaging littered the space. Lisa slowed slightly, scanning the shadows. She could hear Max moving silently, tense, a shadow among shadows. Then she spotted it, a faint trail leading toward the forest that bordered the town. Her stomach clenched. Pursuing an intruder into the woods during a snowstorm was risky, but her gut told her the trail must be followed. Lives could depend on it. As they approached the forest edge, Max paused, nose twitching, tail stiff. Lisa crouched beside him, brushing snow from her visor. "You see something," she whispered. The dog responded with a subtle bark and a growl, his gaze fixed on a narrow path between snow-laden pines. Lisa nodded, trusting him implicitly. Together, they stepped into the dense forest, snow crunching beneath their boots, the storm muffling distant sounds and amplifying every creak and rustle of the trees. The cold was biting, cutting through her gloves and coat, but adrenaline kept her warm. Every step was careful, calculated. Snow draped heavily on branches, threatening to collapse under the slightest disturbance. Shadows moved in strange, fluid patterns as moonlight struggled to penetrate the storm. Lisa's instincts told her the intruder might be watching, waiting for her to make a mistake. Max's focus never wavered. He led with purpose, sniffing every footprint, every broken twig, and signaling subtle cues to Lisa when the trail deviated. The dog's unwavering confidence bolstered her own, and she found herself drawing strength from his presence. Then through the swirling white, a faint cry reached her ears, a voice muffled, desperate, lost in the wind. Lisa froze. Max growled low, nose pointing toward a mound partially hidden under snow. Lisa's pulse spiked. She approached slowly, cautious yet urgent. Peeling back the snow, she uncovered a man trapped beneath a partially collapsed shed. His teeth chattered violently, eyes wide with panic. Lisa wrapped her coat around him, shivering as the storm bit through their layers and called for backup. Snow drifted between them, obscuring visibility, yet she pressed on, determined to stabilize the man until help arrived. Max remained vigilant, standing between the trapped man and the dark forest beyond. Lisa's hands shook slightly as she assessed the situation. The man was conscious but hypothermic, mumbling incoherently. Lisa whispered reassurances, brushing snow from his face. The storm continued to howl, each gust like a living thing pressing against her resolve. Max barked softly, then growled at an unseen presence in the shadows, reminding Lisa that danger had not yet passed. Tonight, the snow wasn't just cold, it was a cloak for chaos, and she knew the next moments could change everything. Lisa adjusted her grip on her radio, hoping for a response from the sheriff's office. Static hissed, but distant voices could be heard, confirming that backup was on the way. Yet every second felt like an eternity. The man's shivering intensified, and Lisa knew time was critical. She knelt beside him, wrapping her arms around his trembling body, offering warmth where she could. Max shifted slightly, ensuring that no threat could approach undetected. Together, they formed a fragile barrier against the storm, the shadows, and the unknown intruder still lurking nearby. The wind howled, snow swirled, and Lisa realized that the night had transformed into something far more dangerous than a simple break-in. It had become a test of endurance, courage, and trust. Max's presence was her lifeline, his instincts sharper than her own. Every sound, every movement in the snow-laden forest was amplified, demanding attention and precise response. Lisa took a deep breath, focusing on the immediate threat and the trapped man, knowing that whatever awaited them next would require every ounce of courage she had, and that Max would be right beside her, unwavering. The forest loomed ahead like a frozen labyrinth, its snow-laden branches forming skeletal arches that closed off the sky. Lisa adjusted her grip on her radio, feeling the weight of both her responsibility and the storm pressing down on her shoulders. Max moved ahead, nose to the ground, tail stiff, scanning every inch of the snow-covered trail. The wind whistled through the pines, carrying the scent of pine resin, frost, and something else, something faint, metallic, and alarming. Lisa's pulse quickened as she followed, every crunch of snow underfoot amplified by the silence of the storm. The path was narrow, winding, and treacherous. Snow clung to branches, sometimes falling in sudden cascades that threatened to knock her off balance. Lisa's boots slipped on ice hidden beneath powder, but she steadied herself with the help of her gloved hands brushing against tree trunks. Every shadow seemed alive, every rustle of the wind a potential threat. She felt the adrenaline surge again, sharp and consuming, sharpening her focus. Tonight, she realized the forest was not just a place, it was a trial. Every decision mattered, every step could be critical. Max paused abruptly, ears pricked and body rigid. Lisa crouched slightly, scanning the area ahead. His nose twitched violently as he inhaled a scent that she couldn't detect. Lisa whispered, "Lead the way, Max." Without hesitation, he bounded forward, weaving gracefully through the snow-laden underbrush. Lisa followed, boots sinking with each step, heart racing. The forest grew darker, shadows thickening as the storm's intensity increased. Snowflakes swirled around them, coating eyelashes and freezing the edges of her visor. Visibility dropped, and the world seemed to shrink around the two of them, leaving only their shared purpose to guide them. Suddenly Max stopped, ears erect, tail stiff. His body was tense, almost vibrating with controlled energy. Lisa froze, scanning the dense forest. There it was, a faint disturbance in the snow, a mark that something or someone had passed moments before. She bent slightly, trying to read the trail. Snowfall had already started to obscure it, but Max's instincts were flawless. He nudged her hand, urging her forward. Lisa swallowed hard, heart hammering. This was no longer a simple pursuit. They were moving into the unknown. The intruder could be armed, desperate, or dangerous, and the storm concealed every detail. A sudden rustle in the underbrush made Lisa flinch. Max growled low, the sound vibrating in her chest. She scanned the area, gun raised, breath coming in sharp, visible bursts. The forest seemed to close in, the snow muffling all other sounds except their own movement and the occasional snap of a branch underfoot. Lisa felt her heartbeat echoing in her ears, a rhythm matching the storm itself. Every instinct screamed that they were being watched. She whispered, "Stay close," and Max responded by staying near, moving with precise coordination. The path twisted and turned, leading them deeper into the dense woods. Snow had accumulated in thick layers, sometimes knee-deep, forcing Lisa to lift her legs higher with each step. Max maneuvered effortlessly, pawing through drifts and navigating around fallen branches. His focus never wavered. Lisa marveled at his precision, trusting him implicitly. In the quiet moments, she could feel the bond between them, a silent understanding that transcended words. Max wasn't just a partner. He was a protector, an extension of her instincts, a living, breathing shield against the unknown dangers of the forest. Suddenly, a faint whimper reached Lisa's ears, carried weakly by the swirling wind. Her pulse spiked. She froze, trying to locate the source. Max's growl deepened and he pivoted toward a thick cluster of trees. Lisa followed, careful not to make noise, heart hammering. The whimper grew clearer, a human voice, small and fragile, terrified. Lisa's mind raced. Could it be a hidden victim, a witness, or the intruder herself using deception? She didn't have time to speculate. The sound demanded immediate action. Max moved with purpose and Lisa followed, each step deliberate, silent, and urgent. They reached a small clearing where the snow had been disturbed more recently than anywhere else. Max sniffed the ground intensely, then barked sharply, signaling Lisa to approach a snow-covered mound partially hidden by trees. Lisa's breath caught in her throat. Beneath the snow, she uncovered the outline of a person, a young man trapped and shivering violently. His clothes were soaked, his lips blue from cold, and his eyes wide with panic. Lisa's training kicked in. She knelt beside him, brushing away snow and wrapping him in her coat, murmuring reassurances while Max stood alert, scanning the shadows for any signs of movement. The trapped man was muttering incoherently, shivering violently as Lisa tried to stabilize him. She could feel the chill seeping through her gloves as she pressed her coat against him. Max's presence radiated calm authority, growling softly at the darkness surrounding them, a silent guardian. Lisa realized that the storm had turned this forest into a dangerous, isolated battlefield. The intruder, if still nearby, could strike at any moment. Every instinct screamed vigilance. She whispered to Max, "Keep watch," and he responded with a subtle growl, eyes locked on the tree line, scanning for movement. Then came a sound, a faint crunch, too deliberate to be part of the storm. Lisa's head snapped toward it, gun raised. Max growled sharply, body rigid, ears forward. From the shadows, a figure emerged, a man, hood pulled low, eyes wild, holding a crowbar in one hand. The intruder's breath came in ragged gasps, visible in the frigid air, and desperation radiated from his movements. Lisa's training and instinct combined in a single, focused moment. "Stay back," she shouted, voice echoing through the storm-laden trees. Max positioned himself between Lisa and the figure, teeth flashing but restrained, ready to defend. The intruder hesitated, scanning the scene. He was clearly aware of Max's lethal precision and Lisa's unwavering resolve. Snow swirled around them, stinging exposed skin and reducing visibility, yet every movement was sharply defined against the white backdrop. Lisa's eyes never left the man, calculating distance, possible movements, and escape routes. Max growled again, low and controlled, signaling readiness for any sudden action. Lisa whispered, "Do not move," and her tone carried authority that cut through the storm's roar. The intruder's desperation was palpable, yet he hesitated, aware that this was no ordinary confrontation. Time seemed to stretch in the frozen forest. Lisa's breath came in frosty clouds, her muscles taut, every nerve alert. The trapped man's shivering intensified, and Lisa pressed her coat around him. Max shifted slightly, keeping his gaze on the intruder, signaling that any sudden move would be met with immediate response. Lisa's mind raced through possibilities, aware that a single misstep could lead to disaster. She thought of the broken windows, the fleeing intruder, the trapped man, and the storm's relentless pressure. Every factor demanded calm precision, courage, and trust in Max's instincts. The wind howled louder, snow obscuring edges of the clearing, and Lisa felt the forest closing in around them. Yet despite the danger, a quiet determination settled in her chest. She had trained for this, and Max had never failed her. Together they formed a coordinated force, human and canine, instinct and loyalty intertwined. Lisa whispered once more, "Stay alert," and Max's response was immediate, a low, vibrating growl that seemed to echo her own heightened heartbeat. Tonight, the forest was a test of endurance, courage, and trust, and they were ready. Lisa's heart raced as she knelt beside the snow-covered mound, brushing away the thick layer of powder that concealed the man beneath. Max stood alert beside her, nose twitching, ears forward, tail stiff with readiness. The trapped man was shivering violently, teeth chattering as the icy wind pierced his soaked clothing. His eyes, wide with fear, met Lisa's for a brief moment, searching for help in the midst of the storm. She whispered gently, "You're safe now. We've got you," wrapping him in the thick coat she had pulled over her uniform. Max nuzzled her side, reassuring both Lisa and the man with his presence. The man's breathing was shallow, panicked. Lisa pressed a gloved hand to his chest, feeling the rapid rise and fall beneath layers of wet clothing. She whispered reassurances, her voice carrying through the howling wind. "Breathe slowly. You're okay. Help is coming." Max growled softly at the surrounding shadows, alert to any threat that might emerge from the forest. Lisa's eyes scanned the dark tree line, searching for movement or sign of the intruder. The storm had turned the woods into a blur of white and shadow, but Max's instincts provided a lifeline of focus. Lisa adjusted the man, shifting him carefully so he could sit upright against the fallen tree that had partially shielded him. Snow clung to his hair and soaked through his jacket, sapping warmth from his body. Lisa removed her gloves briefly to grasp his icy hands, pressing them between her own to transfer heat. Max nudged her, reminding her to remain vigilant. The storm's howl carried the distant crunch of snow. Could it be the intruder returning? Lisa's pulse quickened. She had saved many lives before, but the combination of freezing conditions, the forest, and the unknown threat amplified every risk. The man began to mumble, barely audible over the wind. Lisa leaned closer, careful not to frighten him. "It's okay, just stay calm, you're safe." His words were disjointed, fragments of fear and relief. They were chasing me the back road, I tried," Max growled low in warning. Lisa's gaze swept the shadows, noticing a disturbance among the trees. Footprints pressed into the snow, leading deeper into the forest. Her instincts screamed that the intruder had not yet abandoned the chase. The storm made pursuit dangerous, but she knew she had no choice. She had to protect this man. Lisa radioed the sheriff's office again, static crackling over the line. "This is Officer. I have a victim trapped in the forest. Coordinates approximate." The reply was faint, distorted by the storm. Backup was on the way, but the roads were treacherous. Every second counted. Lisa's eyes returned to the trapped man, nodding his pale skin and shivering limbs. Hypothermia was setting in quickly, and she had to act fast. She wrapped him as best she could in her coat, and shielded him with her body while Max patrolled the perimeter. The wind gusted violently, pushing snow against Lisa's face and coat. She shivered but remained focused, glancing between the man and the surrounding shadows. Max barked softly, ears flicking toward a faint movement in the trees. Lisa's heart jumped. Another figure, or the intruder returning for revenge. She stood slowly, positioning herself between Max, the man, and the forest's edge. The storm had transformed the forest into a chaotic, shifting maze. Every tree could conceal a threat, every shadow a potential attack. Lisa's mind raced, calculating, anticipating. Suddenly, a figure emerged from the shadows, stumbling through the snow. It was the intruder, The man from the alley hood pulled low, crowbar in hand. His eyes darted frantically between Lisa and Max, desperation radiating from every movement. Max growled, hackles raised, positioning himself defensively. Lisa stepped forward, hand steady on her firearm, voice commanding and unwavering. "Stay where you are. Drop the weapon." The intruder hesitated, then lunged, eyes wild. Max reacted instantly, intercepting him with precise force, teeth flashing but restrained, ready to protect Lisa and the trapped man. The struggle was brief but tense. The intruder's desperation met Max's trained discipline. Lisa's mind raced, directing Max while maintaining her own defensive stance. She issued clear, calm commands and Max obeyed flawlessly, pinning the intruder while avoiding unnecessary harm. Lisa moved in quickly, securing the man with handcuffs. Snow clung to every surface, plastered against uniforms and fur, but nothing could obscure the clarity of purpose. Max's eyes never left the intruder, alert and protective, ready to act again if needed. The storm had not defeated them. Their combined courage and skill had prevailed. With the intruder restrained, Lisa returned her attention to the trapped man. His teeth still chattered, lips blue, body trembling from the cold. She knelt beside him, pressing her coat closer, whispering reassurance. "It's over now. You're safe. Help is coming." Max nudged the man gently, offering warmth and calm through his presence. Lisa could feel the tension in the man's body slowly easing, replaced by relief and trust. She knew that every life saved was a victory, but this one had been especially precarious. The storm continued to rage around them, snow piling higher, wind gusting in sudden, unpredictable bursts. Lisa scanned the forest, ensuring no further threats remained. Max's low growl reminded her that vigilance was necessary even in moments of apparent safety. Lisa's eyes flicked to the intruder, now restrained and struggling against the cuffs. She took a deep breath, steadying herself. This encounter had tested every skill she possessed: tracking, communication, quick decision-making, and the bond she shared with Max. Together, they had neutralized danger and safeguarded a life against overwhelming odds. As Lisa waited for backup to arrive, she assessed the trapped man's condition. He was shivering but conscious, coherent enough to respond to questions. Lisa offered sips of water from her flask, brushing snow from his hair and clothing. Max stayed at her side, scanning every shadow, signaling with subtle shifts and growls that nothing should be taken for granted. Lisa felt a wave of pride and relief, not just for the rescue, but for Max. In moments like these, the bond between officer and K9 proved invaluable, unshakable, and heroic in a way words could barely capture. Minutes later, distant sirens pierced the storm's roar, growing steadily louder. Lisa's pulse steadied, knowing help was finally arriving. She guided the trapped man to a more sheltered position, shielding him from the worst of the wind. Max remained vigilant, tail flicking, ears swiveling, eyes scanning every angle. The storm had tested them, pushed them to their limits, yet Lisa felt a quiet satisfaction. They had succeeded where chaos had threatened to win. The forest, the intruder, and the relentless snowstorm had all been defeated by determination, training, and the unwavering loyalty of a remarkable partner. Backup arrived moments later, and Lisa coordinated with medics and other officers to secure the scene. The trapped man was carefully extracted from the snow, blankets and warm clothing offered immediately. Max stayed close, ensuring no one approached too quickly, protecting both Lisa and the rescued man. Lisa watched as the intruder was led away, cuffs secure, and snow continued to fall around them like a silent witness to the night's events. The danger had passed, but the intensity of the rescue left a lingering sense of awe and exhaustion. As Lisa stood in the snow, brushing off ice and checking Max's fur for frost, she allowed herself a brief moment of reflection. The forest, the storm, and the unknown threat had tested her courage and resolve. Max's loyalty had saved lives, his instincts flawless under pressure. Lisa knew this was the reality of her duty, unpredictable, perilous, and demanding, but also profoundly rewarding. She knelt to ruffle Max's ears, whispering, "Good job, buddy. You're incredible." Max responded with a soft nuzzle, the bond between them deeper than ever, a silent acknowledgement of triumph in the heart of a frozen wilderness. The snowstorm raged like a living creature, swirling fiercely around the small clearing where Officer Lisa, Max, and the rescued man had sought refuge. The intruder was restrained, his crowbar clutched tightly in one hand as if it still offered him power. Lisa kept her firearm steady, eyes never leaving him, every muscle taut with vigilance. Max growled low, a protective rumble that vibrated through the snow-laden forest. But even as she focused on the restrained threat, a prickle of unease crawled up Lisa's spine. Something told her this night's danger was far from over. Lisa's breath came in frozen clouds, puffing against the dim light filtering through snow-coated branches. She crouched slightly, hand firm on Max's harness, guiding him subtly while maintaining an alert stance. The storm muted all sounds but made shadows in the forest dance in unnatural patterns. Every snap of a branch, every shuffle of snow seemed as if the woods themselves were watching. Lisa's mind raced. What if the intruder had an accomplice, or a hidden weapon left in the trees? Her instincts screamed that she could not afford to relax, not for a single second. The trapped man's shivering intensified despite the layers of coats and blankets Lisa had wrapped around him. She pressed a gloved hand to his back, murmuring soothing words as Max leaned close, providing warmth and calm. The intruder struggled against his cuffs, eyes darting between Lisa and Max. There was desperation in his gaze, a raw, untamed fear mixed with defiance. Lisa's voice carried authority. "It's over. Stop moving. You're done." Max's low growl deepened, signaling the intruder that any sudden action would be met immediately. Snow fell heavier now, masking all sound but amplifying tension. Suddenly, a rustling noise emerged from the thick brush behind the intruder. Lisa's pulse spiked. She pivoted slightly, gun raised, heart hammering in sync with the low growl of Max. The restrained man froze in terror, eyes wide. Max's body tensed, hackles raised. Then a second figure emerged from the shadows, a younger man, hood pulled tight, clutching a jagged stick. His eyes darted frantically, calculating his approach. He lunged toward the restrained intruder as if to free him. Max reacted instantly, barking sharply, snapping into a defensive stance. The storm became a chaotic arena for a life-or-death encounter. Lisa shouted, her voice slicing through the roaring wind. "Stop! Don't come any closer!" Her words carried authority, but she could see the fear in the second man's eyes. Max lunged, intercepting the new threat with precise control, teeth flashing but restrained. The snow sprayed in every direction as he pinned the man to the ground. Lisa advanced, gloved hands gripping her firearm, body tense yet controlled. Her mind raced. Two intruders, one restrained, one desperate. Any mistake could cost a life. She relied on Max's instincts, trusting his flawless judgment more than anything else in the storm. The restrained intruder coughed, shivering violently, eyes darting between Lisa and Max. He murmured something under his breath, almost inaudible over the howling wind. Lisa's eyes locked with his. She could see the flicker of fear, the realization that Max's loyalty and training were absolute. The second man struggled under Max's grip, snow sticking to his hair and clothing, frost forming on exposed skin. Lisa approached cautiously, keeping her eyes on both threats, assessing distance, movement, and the environment. Snow-laden branches hung precariously overhead, threatening to collapse with the slightest disturbance. Every element of the forest could become a weapon or obstacle. The storm intensified, the wind whipping snow into Lisa's face, biting at exposed skin, obscuring her vision. She signaled subtly to Max, who adjusted his position instantly, keeping the second intruder pinned while staying between Lisa and the restrained man. Her breathing was steady but rapid, every sense sharpened. She knew that the moment could change in an instant. One misstep, one wrong word, and the balance of control would shatter. Lisa's mind calculated outcomes, yet her trust in Max allowed her to act decisively without hesitation. The K9's loyalty was unmatched, and tonight it could mean the difference between life and death. Lisa's voice cut through the storm again, firmer this time. "Drop the stick, step away." The second man's eyes flickered between Lisa and Max, weighing options. He hesitated, every muscle taut, a human marionette pulled between desperation and fear. Max growled louder, a deep, warning vibration that reverberated through the snow around them. Lisa took a cautious step forward, one hand on her firearm, the other ready to intervene physically if necessary. The forest seemed to close in around them, snow masking sound yet amplifying the tension. She felt every heartbeat, every twitch, every breath in the frozen night. Then, unexpectedly, the second man lunged again, attempting to strike Max with the stick. Max reacted instantly, intercepting him with force, knocking him off balance while maintaining control. Lisa moved forward in sync, handcuffs ready, securing the man in a swift, precise motion. Snow sprayed in every direction, plastering both officers and intruders in white. The storm roared as if approving of the decisive action. Lisa exhaled sharply, feeling the adrenaline surge through her body, awareness heightened but steady. They had neutralized the immediate threat, but the storm and the forest still held unseen dangers. The restrained intruder remained pinned partially under Max's watchful gaze, trembling violently in the cold. Lisa scanned the surroundings for any additional movement. Every shadow seemed to shift in the wind. Every fallen branch could hide a lurking danger. The storm muffled distant sounds, making it impossible to detect approaching threats until they were nearly upon them. Lisa's training, coupled with Max's instincts, was the only reason they had managed to contain the situation thus far. She allowed herself a moment to catch her breath, feeling the icy sting of snow on her cheeks. Lisa turned her attention to the trapped man, now wrapped securely in her coat and blankets. "You're going to be okay," she reassured him. Max stayed close, moving between Lisa, the trapped man, and the intruders. His loyalty was absolute, his vigilance unwavering. Lisa's mind raced through the next steps. They had to move the trapped man to safety, secure the intruders, and ensure backup arrived quickly. Every element, storm, forest, human unpredictability, compounded the risk. Yet despite exhaustion and the biting cold, Lisa felt a surge of determination. Failure was not an option. Minutes passed, each one stretching like hours in the storm-laden forest. Then distant lights flickered through the trees, backup was arriving. Lisa exhaled a quiet sigh of relief, yet remained alert, every muscle coiled. Snow crunched under approaching boots, voices shouted muffled by the blizzard. Lisa guided medics and other officers to the trapped man, assisting in lifting him carefully. Max stayed close, eyes scanning the forest, tail flicking, ears pricked for any signs of remaining threats. Lisa realized that the storm's danger had not yet fully receded, but the immediate threat had been neutralized, thanks to Max's extraordinary instincts and unwavering loyalty. As the intruders were secured and led away by arriving officers, Lisa finally allowed herself a brief moment of reflection. The storm still raged, wind whipping snow into the night, but the clearing felt calmer, almost serene. The trapped man had been rescued, lives had been saved, and the intruders neutralized. Lisa patted Max's fur, feeling the warmth of his body despite the cold. "Good job, buddy," she whispered, her voice carrying over the wind. Max responded with a soft nuzzle, eyes calm but alert. Their bond, forged through countless patrols and heightened tonight to heroic heights, had carried them through chaos and danger alike. Lisa's thoughts drifted briefly to the townspeople of Aspen Falls. They would wake to a quiet town blanketed in snow, unaware of the peril that had unfolded in the forest's depths. They would not see the struggle, the relentless storm, or the courage displayed by a dedicated officer and her K-9 partner. But Lisa knew, some victories were measured not by recognition, but by the lives protected, the immediate threats neutralized, and the unwavering loyalty that ensured both survival and justice. The storm began to ebb slightly, the fury of the blizzard giving way to a softer, quieter snow. Lisa checked the trapped man's vitals one last time before letting medics take him, ensuring he was stabilized and warm. Max stood at her side, scanning the edges of the clearing, ready to react at the slightest hint of danger. Lisa allowed herself a moment to breathe, the tension of the night slowly easing. Yet she knew that the night had only tested the beginning of what this storm could bring, and that vigilance was never optional for those who chose to protect others. The wind howled like a furious beast, driving snow into every crevice of the forest. Lisa crouched low, hand gripping her firearm, eyes darting between Max, the restrained intruders, and the fatting outline of the storm-shrouded trees. Her muscles burned with exhaustion, yet adrenaline coursed through her veins, sharpening every sense. The forest, once silent and foreboding, now felt alive, every shadow a potential threat, every gust of wind a reminder that danger could strike at any moment. Max stood at her side, ears forward, body coiled with energy, a perfect partner ready to act in an instant. Backup had arrived moments ago, but the storm slowed their advance. Medics were tending to the rescued man, blankets draped over him, warm breaths visible in the freezing air. Lisa's focus never wavered. The intruders were secure, but the forest still held unknown dangers. She scanned the tree line, eyes squinting against the snow, every branch and shadow a possible hiding place. Max growled low, alert to something she could not yet see. Lisa's heart quickened. Her instincts screamed that the final test of the night was approaching. Suddenly, movement flickered in the periphery, a flash of black darting between the snow-draped trunks. Lisa tensed, hand tightening on her weapon. Max stiffened, hackles raised, tail rigid. A faint whistling sound carried through the wind, almost imperceptible, but her ears caught it. Someone or something was still out there. The storm masked footsteps but amplified every other noise, creating a disorienting sense of peril. Lisa's mind raced, calculating possibilities, predicting movements, preparing for action. Max growled sharply, a low, controlled warning that demanded immediate attention. The intruder struggled against the cuffs, muttering under his breath, eyes darting wildly. Lisa pivoted, addressing him with calm authority. "Stay down, you're done." Max's presence reinforced her command. The restrained man, now stabilized by medics, watched from a safe distance, shivering but conscious. Lisa knew that the storm's fury added a layer of unpredictability. Visibility was low, sounds distorted, and footing treacherous. Every step could trigger a fall, every shadow a misinterpretation. Yet she remained resolute, trusting in Max's instincts and her own years of experience navigating life-and-death situations. Without warning, a sharp, piercing scream echoed through the forest. Lisa's heart leapt into her throat. The sound was human, desperate, unmistakable. Max bolted toward the source, leash snapping taut, eyes fixed on the unseen threat. Lisa sprinted after him, boots sinking into snow, breath coming in ragged clouds. Her muscles burned with exertion, but the urgency propelled her forward. She couldn't ignore a cry for help. Somewhere in this blizzard, someone else was in danger, and it was up to her and Max to find them. They reached a narrow ravine, snow piled high on its edges, drifts obscuring potential hazards. Max paused at the edge, nose twitching, ears swiveling. Lisa crouched beside him, assessing the terrain. Below, partially buried in snow, was a figure, another person trapped and semi-conscious, frost forming on their hair and clothing. The storm had intensified, gusting violently, reducing visibility to mere feet. Lisa's pulse thundered in her ears. She signaled for backup, but the snowstorm made clear communication nearly impossible. She had to act immediately. Max's growl vibrated in warning, scanning for threats in the surrounding forest. Lisa carefully descended the edge of the ravine, boots slipping on ice beneath the snow. Max followed, agile and precise, positioning himself between her and potential threats. The trapped person was trembling violently, eyes half-closed, breath shallow. Lisa wrapped her coat around them, pressing warmth against their freezing body, murmuring reassurances. Max nudged her side gently, signaling readiness and awareness. Lisa knew that this was a critical moment. The storm, the unstable snow, and the trapped person's fragile state combined into a life-threatening scenario. Every movement had to be calculated, every step precise. Suddenly, the intruder, restrained but cunning, lunged in an attempt to escape. Max reacted instantly, intercepting him with precision, teeth flashing but restrained to avoid lethal harm. Lisa's firearm remained trained on him, voice calm but commanding. "Stay down, you're done." The intruder froze, realizing the futility of defiance. Max maintained a vigilant stance, body rigid, ready for any sudden movement. Lisa exhaled sharply, pushing a rush of adrenaline through controlled nerves. The storm's roar became almost background noise to the focused tension of this frozen battlefield. Lisa quickly assessed the trapped person's condition. Frostbite had begun to take hold, and hypothermia was imminent. She worked with Max's assistance, using the dog as a shield against the gusts while carefully moving the person to a safer, more sheltered location nearby. Snow clung to every surface, limiting maneuverability, yet Lisa's training guided her. Max stayed alert, every sense engaged, eyes scanning the surrounding forest, ears twitching at even the faintest sound. The storm had made them a small island of urgency, with danger pressing in from all sides. As she stabilized the trapped person, Lisa caught sight of a subtle movement in the shadows, a branch bending unnaturally, snow cascading down. Her pulse spiked. Max growled low, body taut. Lisa signaled with a hand gesture and Max bounded toward the source, agile and silent. She followed cautiously, every sense heightened, aware that the storm masked threats yet amplified tension. The wind whipped snow into her face, stinging cheeks and obscuring vision, but she pressed on, driven by the urgency of the rescue. Max located the source. Another intruder, possibly an accomplice, crouched behind a tree with a knife glinting in the dim light. Lisa's eyes narrowed, firearm steady, body coiled. She barked a command, her voice cutting through the blizzard. "Drop it, step away," Max growled, advancing strategically, positioning himself between Lisa and the threat. The intruder froze, realizing escape was impossible. Lisa assessed her options, aware that the storm limited reinforcements and mobility. One wrong move could result in catastrophe. The standoff lasted only seconds, but the tension was unbearable. The intruder weighed options, Max's growl unwavering, Lisa's firearm trained and ready. Lisa's mind raced, calculating risk, anticipating movement, predicting responses. Finally, the intruder hesitated, the futility of resistance sinking in. With a controlled movement, Lisa stepped forward and secured the intruder, cuffing him efficiently. Max remained alert, body tense, tail flicking in measured vigilance. The storm raged, but the immediate threats were neutralized. With the intruders secured, Lisa focused on the trapped person and the rescued man, ensuring both were warm, stable, and conscious. Snow continued to fall heavily, gusts biting at exposed skin, yet the storm's chaos had been overcome by preparation, training, and the unbreakable bond between officer and K-9. Backup finally reached the ravine, moving cautiously through the snow to assist. Medics arrived to stabilize the trapped person, while other officers took the restrained intruders into custody. Max remained vigilant, ensuring no further threats emerged. Lisa allowed herself a brief moment to exhale, kneeling beside Max, hand resting on his thick fur. The storm still raged around them, but the worst of the danger had passed. She surveyed the scene. Intruders secured, victims rescued, storm ongoing yet manageable. The forest, once an unpredictable maze of white and shadow, now felt conquered, each step forward a testament to courage, skill, and trust. Max nudged her hand, a silent acknowledgement of their triumph together. As the rescued individuals were escorted to safety and the intruders loaded into police vehicles, Lisa finally allowed herself to feel the weight of the night's events. The storm had tested every limit, physical, mental, and emotional. Yet through every challenge, Max had been an unwavering partner, instinctively protective, decisively effective, and loyal beyond measure. Lisa brushed snow from her uniform, exhausted but exhilarated, and whispered softly, "We did it, buddy. We saved them all." Max responded with a soft nuzzle, eyes calm but alert, ready for whatever might come next. The storm had begun to ease, though the forest remained blanketed in thick snow, branches heavy, dripping with frozen crystals. The once whistling wind was reduced to a biting gust that carried the scent of pine and wet earth. Officer Lisa, boots sunk in icy snow, surveyed the clearing. Max stood beside her, ears swiveling, tail stiff but relaxed, eyes scanning the forest for any lingering danger. They had secured the intruders, rescued 2 lives, and survived a storm that seemed determined to test them at every turn. The adrenaline that had surged for hours now gave way to fatigue, both physical and emotional. Lisa glanced at the trapped man and the second victim, now wrapped in thermal blankets, being guided carefully by medics toward the awaiting patrol vehicles. Their faces, pale from cold and shock, held a mixture of relief and disbelief. The forest that had seemed like a frozen labyrinth of fear just hours ago now stood quiet, almost serene under the dim winter light. Lisa's gaze softened as she watched them shivering but safe, feeling the magnitude of what had been accomplished. The storm might have obscured the night, but it had also illuminated courage, resilience, and teamwork in the harshest conditions. Max padded beside her, still alert, head low as he sniffed the snow-covered ground. Lisa knelt and ruffled his thick fur, brushing ice from his coat. "Good work, buddy," she whispered. Max responded with a soft nuzzle, eyes shining with a combination of pride and quiet satisfaction. The bond between officer and K9 had grown stronger than ever tonight. Years of training, trust, and countless shared experiences culminated in this moment of victory. Lisa knew that Max had not just been a partner. He had been a lifeline, an instinctual protector whose loyalty and courage had saved lives. The intruders, now handcuffed and escorted toward waiting patrol cars, resisted only briefly before exhaustion and fear them. Their wild, desperate energy had been funneled into chaos, yet they were finally contained. Lisa kept a watchful eye on them as backup officers managed the scene. The storm's final gusts rattled branches, snow cascading down in sudden bursts, a reminder that nature's fury had not yet completely relented. Lisa's mind raced briefly with the what-ifs, the scenarios that could have turned tragic, but she quickly pushed them aside. The moment called for focus, presence, and measured calm. A medic approached, checking the rescued victim's vital signs, and nodded to Lisa. "They're stable, thanks to you and your dog. They'll be okay." Relief washed over her, though fatigue lingered like a shadow. Lisa's chest rose and fell in measured breaths, eyes scanning the remaining shadows of the forest. Even as the storm waned, she knew that vigilance was part of the job. Danger could emerge at any moment. Yet the immediate crisis had passed, and for the first time in hours, Lisa allowed herself a moment to appreciate the enormity of their survival and success. As medics guided the rescued individuals into vehicles, Lisa took a brief moment to reflect on the chain of events that had brought them here. Hours ago, a simple alarm had set off a chain reaction of fear, pursuit, and survival. What had begun as a routine response to a break-in had escalated into a life-or-death confrontation, compounded by a relentless snowstorm that transformed familiar terrain into a perilous, almost alien environment. Every decision, every instinct, every ounce of training had been tested. Yet she and Max had prevailed, proving that courage, skill, and trust could overcome even the most extreme circumstances. Lisa's gaze shifted toward the town beyond the forest, visible now as snow-dusted rooftops emerging faintly in the dim light. Aspen Falls would wake to a town untouched, unaware of the danger that had lurked mere hours ago. Children would see snow-covered streets, couples would walk quietly in the morning frost, and no one would know that a small band of determined officers and a heroic K9 had faced a storm and human malice to save lives. Lisa's lips curved in a small, quiet smile. Recognition mattered little. The lives saved were reward enough. Max leaned against her leg, ears flicking, tail brushing snow. Lisa knelt, hands brushing over his muzzle, eyes meeting his unwavering gaze. "We did good tonight, Max. Really good." Max nudged her hand, soft and reassuring, a subtle yet profound acknowledgement of their shared triumph. Lisa felt the weight of the night's tension slowly lift, replaced by a deep sense of fulfillment. The storm had tested every boundary of fear and endurance. Yet together they had turned peril into triumph, chaos into order, and fear into security. The restrained intruders were loaded into patrol vehicles, their protests reduced to muttered threats and the occasional defiant glare. Lisa noted the irony. The desperation that had driven them to risk lives had been their own undoing. Max growled low as the vehicles pulled away, then relaxed once they were out of sight. Lisa took a deep breath, allowing herself a fleeting sense of calm in the midst of a world still swirled with snow and wind. She knew the night was far from ordinary. It had been a crucible, a test of endurance, courage, and instinct, and they had survived it unbroken. As officers and medics completed their tasks, Lisa finally had a moment to check her own gear. Snow had soaked through gloves and uniform, frost clinging to hair and eyelashes. She shivered, the storm's bite still sharp, but her mind replayed the events with clarity. Each step, each choice, each risk taken had been deliberate, measured, and necessary. The forest had tested them physically, mentally, and emotionally. Max had been her anchor, guiding her through chaos with instinctive precision. Tonight had reaffirmed what she had always known. Trust and loyalty could turn the impossible into reality. Lisa walked toward the patrol vehicles, Max at her side, snow crunching beneath their feet. The rescued man offered a weak, grateful smile, eyes shining with relief. "Thank you for saving me," he whispered, voice trembling. Lisa nodded, brushing snow from his shoulders. "You're safe now," she said. Max nuzzled the man gently, conveying warmth and calm in a way that words could not. The bond between human and canine had extended beyond officer and partner. It had touched another life, providing comfort and reassurance in the midst of chaos. The first light of dawn began to pierce the storm clouds, casting a pale glow across the forest. Snowflakes still drifted softly, but the tempest had passed. Lisa took a moment to absorb the quiet majesty of the morning, snow-dusted trees standing like silent witnesses to the night's events. Max leaned into her side, ears relaxed, eyes scanning calmly. Together, they had faced danger, chaos, and the unpredictable fury of nature. They had emerged not just victorious, but strengthened, their bond deeper, their trust unshakable, and their courage proven in the most unforgiving conditions. Lisa allowed herself one last glance at the forest. The intruders were gone, the victims were safe, and the storm, though relentless, had been conquered. She ruffled Max's fur, smiling despite the chill. "We did it, buddy. Nobody else had to get hurt tonight." Max responded with a soft bark, tail wagging lightly, a signal that he understood entirely. Lisa felt a profound sense of closure, knowing that their courage, skill, and loyalty had turned a night of peril into a story of resilience and triumph. The first rays of sunlight cut through the lingering clouds, casting a soft glow across the snow-laden forest. Ice-coated branches glittered like crystals, and the once raging storm had softened to a whispering wind. Officer Lisa stood in the clearing, boots sinking slightly into the thick, powdery snow. Max, her loyal K9 partner, padded silently beside her, ears pricked, tail relaxed but alert. The forest had been a through the night, chaotic, unpredictable, and unforgiving. But now, in the calm of dawn, it seemed almost serene, as if acknowledging their victory. Lisa exhaled slowly, the crisp winter air filling her lungs. Exhaustion weighed heavily on her body, but her mind was alight with reflection. The events of the past hours played back vividly. The chase through the snow-laden streets, the treacherous pursuit into the forest, the discovery of the trapped victim, and the tense confrontation with desperate intruders. Every step had demanded courage, precision, and instinct. Every decision had carried immense consequences. Yet through it all, she had not faltered, guided by experience, training, and an unbreakable bond with Max. Max nudged her hand gently, a reminder of the partnership that had carried them through chaos. Lisa knelt, brushing snow from his thick fur, feeling the warmth of his body seep into her gloves. "We made it, Max. Nobody else got hurt." Max responded with a soft nuzzle, eyes bright with understanding, loyalty, and the quiet pride of a job well done. Lisa knew that he had saved lives tonight in ways she could never have done alone. His instincts had been flawless, his protection unwavering, and his courage boundless. Together, they had faced the storm and the darkness of human desperation and emerged victorious. The rescued victims were now being escorted toward waiting vehicles, medics guiding them carefully. Their faces reflected shock, relief, and gratitude. One of them, the man trapped in the ravine, looked at Lisa with tears in his eyes. "I don't know how to thank you. I thought I was done for." Lisa gave him a reassuring smile. "You're safe now," she said softly. Max nudged his hand gently, offering warmth and calm where words could not. The man's eyes filled with relief as he nodded, understanding the depth of the courage and loyalty that had saved him. Nearby, the restrained intruders were being loaded into police vehicles, their protests muted by cold and exhaustion. The storm had stripped away all illusions of control, leaving only reality, one in which courage, skill, and steadfast partnership had prevailed. Lisa watched silently, reflecting on the choices that had led to this moment. Every instinct, every command, every split-second decision had mattered. She felt the weight of responsibility settle into a quiet pride. They had faced peril head-on and turned chaos into safety. In the frozen forest, survival had been earned through determination, preparation, and trust. Lisa took a moment to scan the clearing, the forest beyond, and the distant outlines of Aspen Falls. The town slept under a blanket of snow, unaware of the night's events, the danger that had lurked just beyond the streets, the lives teetering on the edge, and the courage that had protected them. She knew that recognition would be unnecessary. The safety of the community, the lives saved, and the loyalty of a partner like Max were reward enough. She ruffled Max's ears again, feeling a sense of profound gratitude for the bond that had carried them through every perilous moment. The snow began to settle more lightly, the storm's fury finally giving way to gentle flakes drifting through the morning air. Lisa's body ached, muscles stiff from hours of exertion, yet her spirit felt lighter than it had in days. She allowed herself a deep breath, savoring the calm after chaos, the silence after the storm. Max leaned against her side, offering quiet reassurance, and she placed her arm around him. Together, they had faced human desperation and nature's fury, protecting lives through courage, teamwork, and unspoken understanding. As medics finished stabilizing the rescued individuals, Lisa finally allowed herself to take stock of the full magnitude of the night's events. The victims were safe, the intruders secured, and the storm's immediate danger had passed. The forest, which had once seemed an endless labyrinth of shadows and snow, now appeared almost peaceful, the morning light revealing frost-covered trunks and sparkling branches. Every step forward, every decisive action, had led them to this dawn of safety and relief. Lisa knelt to place a reassuring hand on Max's thick neck. "We did it, buddy," she whispered, her voice carrying gratitude, relief, and pride. Max responded with a gentle nuzzle, tail flicking in quiet acknowledgement. The rescued man approached slowly, assisted by medics, and stopped before Lisa and Max. He looked into her eyes, voice trembling. "You and your dog, you saved my life tonight. I don't know how I'll ever repay you." Lisa shook her head gently. "You don't have to, just knowing you're safe, that's enough." Max nudged the man's hand gently, and a faint smile broke across his frozen, pale face. The silent communication between human and canine, a bond forged in peril and courage, had conveyed reassurance and comfort beyond words. Lisa reflected on the lessons of the night, the unpredictable fury of nature, the depth of human desperation, and the power of loyalty, trust, and teamwork. The intruders had been driven by panic and fear, yet it was discipline, preparation, and instinct that had determined the outcome. She realized that every night on patrol carried risk, but the partnership she shared with Max transformed danger into something manageable, even conquerable. Their bond had been tested to the extreme, and it had passed unbroken, stronger than ever. As backup vehicles prepared to depart, Lisa helped the rescued man into one of the warm units, ensuring he was secure and comfortable. She gave one last glance at the forest, snow settling gently over the ravine, trees, and paths that had borne witness to the night's drama. Max padded beside her, silent and vigilant, but she could feel the weight of relief settling into him as well. They had faced the storm, confronted human desperation, and emerged triumphant. Every risk, every decision, every instinct had aligned to protect lives, and now the forest was calm, almost reverent under the morning light. Lisa straightened, adjusting her uniform and brushing snow from Max's fur. The storm's fury had passed, leaving only the beauty of a winter morning, a forest glittering under pale sunlight, a town safely beyond its edge and lives preserved. She felt a quiet sense of accomplishment, exhaustion tempered by profound pride. Max looked up at her, eyes gleaming with unwavering loyalty. "We did it, buddy," she whispered again, a soft smile breaking across her face. Max leaned into her side, a silent, faithful companion, the hero of a night that would remain unforgettable. As the patrol vehicles began to depart, taking the rescued individuals and intruders towards safety and justice, Lisa remained in the clearing for a moment longer, absorbing the scene. The snow had transformed the forest into a serene, crystalline world, a stark contrast to the chaos of the night. She reached down, patting Max's neck firmly. "Good job, Max. Nobody else had to get hurt tonight because of you." Max responded with a soft bark and a nuzzle, eyes bright and alert, yet calm, a living testament to the courage, loyalty, and instinct that had defined their night. Finally, Lisa allowed herself to take a deep breath, letting the snow settle over her shoulders, feeling the crisp winter air fill her lungs. The night's chaos, peril, and danger had given way to calm, triumph, and a quiet sense of peace. She looked down at Max one last time, voice soft and filled with gratitude. "We saved them all, together." Max leaned against her side, tail flicking gently, a silent promise that whatever challenges lay ahead, they would face them as they always had, side by side, fearless, loyal, and unbreakable. The forest stood silent once more, blanketed in pristine snow, the sun reflecting off frozen branches. Lisa and Max slowly began the trek back toward town, each step deliberate, each breath steady, carrying with them the knowledge that the lives saved, the dangers faced, and the bond they shared were enduring, unshakable, and unforgettable. Together they had survived the storm, and in doing so had shown what courage, loyalty, and heart could achieve even in the darkest, coldest, and most perilous of nights.